Alright, so yo, what up guys? This is Patrick Hayes. Welcome to my channel if you're new. I'm gonna go find a nice little seat here so I can talk to you about the topic today, which you've maybe seen from the title, which has to do with the biggest misconception that people have about healing their emotions. So this is trauma healing, emotional body healing. I want to talk about the biggest misconception, the most common one too. And this is something that I have absolutely learned, I would say, the hard way and the long way. So trust me, this is important here. And if you really take this in, you'll stop wasting time on your healing path. So before I get started here, I want to let you know that I am still taking donation calls. And so if you do want to do a call with me, I've been talking to people from all over the world. It's been awesome getting to know all you guys. You can either DM me on whatever platform you're on, or you can email me at Patrick Hayes, PatrickHaize, all one word, at gmail.com. And we can set up a call. We can rap about whatever you want to talk about. With that said, the biggest misconception is that what we are healing from is from what other people did to us. I know that may sound strange, but that's actually a misconception. What's keeping trauma stuck in the body is not what other people did to us. It is two other things. The second one being maybe a little bit harder of a rub to take. So this might not be the most popular perspective, but trust me, it's the most empowering. And until I really took this in and really started approaching my healing from this perspective, from this angle, I hadn't really healed in the somatic sense, right? Because there's different levels of healing. The real full healing is a somatic healing. So you have an emotional response to the reality, completely different. And it's not just a mentalized understanding of what your coping mechanisms were, or what happened to you, or the psychology behind the person that did it, forgiving the person that did it, or feeling repatterning the pain. Like, all that stuff is part of it, right? But the real healing comes from one, taking full responsibility for the lies that we have believed, that you have believed, that I have believed. So I had to take full responsibility for the lies that I believed surrounding the situation. And this is the harder one, the second one. I had to take 100% responsibility for how I've passed that trauma on to other people. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to look at. A lot of the trauma world is steeped kind of in a victim mentality, which is, these people did this bad thing to me, and I can heal from it by feeling it, repatterning it, forgiving the people, going through that whole process. And all, like I said, all of that's necessary and valuable. But the healing in the body, like the true fascic reorientation, and that is what happens, your fascia reorients. I won't go deep into it, but the physiological transformation that comes from healing is crazy. Actual healing feels like you're getting a new body, like little trauma area at a time, like a completely new body. Life force comes back into it. It's incredible. The best feeling ever. It feels incredible. And I'll talk more about that in other videos. But to get that full healing in the body, to actually go through that process, it takes 100% self-responsibility. So that means regardless of anything else, whatever anyone did to us, taking full responsibility for the lies that we've believed about that situation and for how we've passed it on. Now, some of you might be wondering, you're like, well, I didn't necessarily pass the trauma on. Like, maybe, for example, maybe your father beat you physically, right? That doesn't mean you didn't go on and like beat your children or beat other people. So you didn't pass that trauma on, right? Wrong. Anytime a trauma is held in the body, it gets passed on. It doesn't, oftentimes does not get passed on in the same form that it was received. Oftentimes it does, but oftentimes it doesn't pass on in the same form it was received. It changes form. So, a kid could get beat by their parents and then become hypercritical or hyper aloof because of that. And then when they relate to other people from that trance state of trauma, which is the coping mechanism of, aloofness or hypercriticality, if that's a word, criticality, hypercritical, then interacting with other people like that causes trauma with them. It traumatizes other people. And it passes on. And so the degree of trauma to which we've received, in one way or another, we've passed it on to other people. And this goes against the kind of victim orientation that a lot of us have felt more comfortable with. Like, no, all this bad stuff happened to me. I'm overcoming the hardship that happened to me. And that's true. You are overcoming the hardship that happened to you. But a healing in more of a kind of pure sense. Let me give an example of that. So, you ever seen a video of a deer getting tackled by a lion and almost killed, but then the lion, leaves? There's videos of it online. The deer just sits there and shakes for like 5 minutes because it was a trauma that was stored in the body. But then since it wasn't killed, that when it left, that all that energy that it couldn't process was still in the body, and how the deer processed it was by shaking it out. After 5 minutes, the deer just pops right back into its regular state and runs off, and it's fine because the trauma left the body. What happens when we're traumatized and the trauma isn't processed fully out of the body is that we become fragmented in our consciousness, and a trance sets in. And this trance becomes a kind of hypnosis state that we operate from. And when we're operating from that hypnosis state, we are passing the trauma on. And we're locking it into our nervous system. So the trauma state gets locked in, bypassing it on. Especially because the tendency for people is to not take responsibility for how they're passing it on. So they've turned away from the trauma in their own nervous system. They've turned away from taking responsibility for it, because what that means is there's a lot to, account for as far as, what we've passed on. And this is the challenging thing about it. But if we're actually going to heal it, if we want to get to the core of the trauma in the nervous system and let it leave, we have to realize that we crystallize it by acting out in relations with people from a space of trauma. That locks it in. And until we account for that, we can't unlock it, right? So the process of unlocking this it's a bit involved. And it does involve, it starts with taking full responsibility for our transgressions. And there is a process of balancing the scales out. So atonement work, right? So, acknowledging who we've hurt, how we've hurt them. If we can balance it out with them and make things right with them, great. It's not always possible, but finding some sort of energetic balance to, compensate for the distortions that we've spread into the world. This is a big part of trauma healing. And without doing this, again, it does not fully release from the body. Oftentimes people confuse big cathartic experiences with trauma healing, and trauma healing can be a big cathartic experience. In my experience, the biggest healings of trauma haven't been a bunch of crying for me. It's been a release in the nervous system that is very short, actually. It doesn't take very long, but it's almost like a balloon. All the air was let out of the balloon, and that was all this tension deep in the core of my nervous system just relaxed. Like I said, I'll get more into the details of how that works. After that, a lot of life force comes in. It's incredible. But what I learned was that, unfortunately, a lot of what I thought was trauma healing, which was cycling through these big cathartic experiences, was actually just an avoidance pattern that I, told myself was healing. So there was deeper things that I wasn't feeling, like the shame or the remorse that I actually felt for passing trauma on to other people. And in avoidance of that, I was having these big cathartic kind of like, cries over, what had happened to me. Now, it's not that there's not space or it isn't appropriate to cry about what happened, right? That's a part of it. That's important, right? But again, the real healing deep in the body comes from taking full responsibility. And that's full responsibility for our own transgressions, how we've transgressed against others. And then, the other one, which I mentioned, which is, the lies that we've believed. And these lies could be, how we've just, as a kid, decided to interpret the situation and believed a lie about ourselves or about other people. Or they could have been implanted, but we took them on. We decided to continue perpetuating those beliefs. And so taking full responsibility for those too. So seeing the lies that we're telling ourselves, basically. Acknowledging the lies that we're telling ourselves. And then upgrading our paradigm to a more ethical paradigm that releases the lie from our bodies also. Right? So that's the other side of it. So this is stuff I'll get into deeper as we move forward. I'm going to do a whole series, kind of like the Sexual Matrix series, but doing it on trauma healing. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of all this different stuff. So if you have questions, or specific things you want me to talk about, you can put, little comments down there. And if it's in alignment, I'll go ahead and do a video on that. Or if you want to talk to me about this kind of stuff, as you know, you can reach out because I'm doing those donation calls. So I'm available for that. And yeah, that's what I have for you today. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. I'm excited to talk to you guys next time. And enjoy yourselves. Much love.